Hello my dear friends and welcome back to another Star Wars news update. So you know how people say Christmas feels like it gets earlier and earlier every year? I saw an advert in August this year for Christmas food. I think that's a bit premature, but considering we've got a very festive Star Wars show coming out in December, and today we have some very exciting Star Wars updates, not to mention we're 45 days away from Christmas, I was feeling slightly festive. This year, once again, we will be holding a Christmas special. The full stream from last year is on Patreon, but I do post the highlights here. If you want to support my channel, the link is down below. But otherwise, my dear friends, on to today's video. So we just had the Lucasfilm panel at D23 in Brazil. We have a couple of really big announcements, nothing too surprising, and it's pretty much exactly what we expected, especially if you watched my last video. So what was said? Well, the most enormous update, Andor Season 2, which has now been renamed Andor: A Star Wars Story, is dropping on Disney Plus on April 22nd, 2025, just after Star Wars Celebration in Japan. I'm so excited, you guys know this, but here's what's disappointing. There was nothing made public. The audience at D23 got quite a few treats, a sneak preview of upcoming content, brand new footage for Skeleton Crew, a new teaser trailer that was different to the first two, and a behind the scenes on the Mandalorian and Grogu. Now I get it, they wanted to reward fans who were physically in the room, and I did say earlier this week, anything at D23 is going to mainly focus on Skeleton Crew. The fact we got anything for Andor's second season is insane. As for the Skeleton Crew scenes, I'm not too disappointed because at the end of the day, the show drops in just under a month. Just like they've done with other shows, we're probably going to get a few more TV spots. So while it is a bit sad we have to wait a few more months for our first Andor Season 2 footage, and even longer for our first glimpse at the Mandalorian and Grogu, we do have a new still for Skeleton Crew. And my dear friends, it reveals a new planet, and a new character which kind of reminds me of Enfys Nest from Solo: A Star Wars Story. The character talking with Neil on the planet at Akran is called Haina, played by Halle Finley, and this still is from the 4th episode. The show looks really sweet, and I'm looking forward to covering it, talking about it, reviewing it, obviously enjoying it if it's good. But if the last 24 hours are any indication of how the fandom is feeling, everyone is pumped for the second season of Andor. That is the one Star Wars project getting most fans hyped, and can you blame them? A final bit of information from D23, for the Mandalorian and Grogu, they confirmed the involvement of Pedro Pascal and Sigourney Weaver, which we already knew about, but it was never acknowledged by Lucasfilm themselves. Filming is still ongoing but nearing completion. Those, my dear friends, are more or less all of the updates from D23 Expo. In other Star Wars news, you're not going to believe this. We have yet another update for the Rey movie and the Kinberg Trilogy. Variety.com spoke to their sources and put out an article yesterday trying to clarify the situation. Why Lucasfilm entrusted Simon Kinberg to pilot the next Star Wars movies. The rumour is that it's episodes 10, 11 and 12, and this corroborates that. However, they don't think the trilogy is going to see the light of day for many years. In fact, according to their sources, Lucasfilm doesn't even know the story tropes of the trilogy. Not only are they still working out the details of what it's going to be based on, but despite the announcement, it's still in the very earliest stages. Which goes back to what we were saying, Lucasfilm should stop announcing things until filming has begun. Not only is the Simon Kinberg trilogy a massive maybe, we're talking about many years down the line. The aim of the Variety article is to basically reassure fans why Kathleen Kennedy chose Kinberg to begin with. She wants to leave the franchise in capable hands before she departs, setting up the future slate of films, including this trilogy. They note one of the main reasons Kinberg was hired is because of his continued creative relationship with Dave Filoni and Carrie Beck, working on Star Wars Rebels with them. Also, back in 2018, Kinberg was tapped to write a standalone Boba Fett feature with director James Mangold, but they were never able to submit a full script. All these years since, Kinberg has been on the sidelines, watching what Lucasfilm as a studio has been doing, sporadically paying attention to the creative side, maybe giving Filoni some input now and again, and for this trilogy he's returning in a pretty big way. Variety goes on to say this: according to multiple industry insiders with experience working in the franchise space, Kinberg is considered on one level a sensible and safe choice. On the other, he's regarded by some as a considerably risky bet. Dark Phoenix, his directorial debut in 2019, was the lowest grossing and worst reviewed film in the X-Men franchise. However, he's also tasked with reviving the Star Trek franchise. But on the Lucasfilm front, they face substantial difficulty launching a comprehensive film slate. At this point, only The Mandalorian and Grogu is a certainty. So, given Kinberg's track record, what is it that made Lucasfilm enlist him to pilot a new fleet of Star Wars films? Well, one major factor is his relationship with other creatives. Studio insiders also stress that while media reports have claimed Kinberg's Star Wars movies are a continuation of Episode 9, Lucasfilm wants a new saga. But as is the case with virtually all script development, we have no plot details. And they say, quote, "The movies are light years away from taking their final shape, let alone arriving in cinemas." So I would say this write-up is very realistic. It has got some optimism, but also a pinch of salt considering the way Lucasfilm has functioned in recent years. The fact that their sources are saying this is light years away means it's no different to other cancelled projects. All we know is that Lucasfilm has signed a deal with Kinberg. We don't know if he's written anything. Probably not. They don't even have a structure for this trilogy. And I also should add, my dear friends, insider Jeff Snyder has since added that the Rey movie is separate to the Kinberg movies. It's going to be a standalone because, as I reported last time, Rey is going to be the Obi-Wan of this trilogy, not the main Jedi. I definitely think, especially amongst fans who maybe weren't too keen on the sequel trilogy, this is being more celebrated than the idea of a Rey standalone movie itself. I think both can be possible. It's weird to me that they would go from Rey in The Rise of Skywalker just starting to master her abilities to being a full-on mentor. I'd like to see the in-between if they want to advance her story and do it better. Rey as a mentor could be interesting if the protagonists have a story that could really advance the Skywalker saga, if they want to carry on with that. But I'm seeing even sequel fans not really care about this. How do you guys feel about it? Does the Kinberg trilogy sound interesting to you? Let me know down below. And so finally, my dear friends, just before I go, a high-definition version of some of the best Star Wars concept art has re-emerged and has started an interesting discussion. This, of course, isn't anything new. This is from The Mandalorian Season 2 Chapter 16, and it's really the first time we've gotten this piece of concept art in such high resolution. It's one of my favourite interactions from the entire show, Boba Fett and Din Djarin recruiting Koska Reeves and Bo-Katan. It's when Koska and Boba have a fight, and Bo-Katan says to Boba, "I've heard your voice 1,000 times," referring to the Clone Wars. I never realised how intricate some of the Season 2 concept art really is. One of my favourites was of course Plo Koon instead of Luke, but in this one I noticed something really interesting. Mercedes Varnado, Sasha Banks, has her signature blue hair instead of her in-character Koska hair. And I think this is the first time I've realised how much the blue hair would have suited the character had they kept it. Also, look how different Bo-Katan looks in the concept art. It's definitely not Katie Sackhoff's version. With all Mando concept art, sometimes it's so different that it's like rewatching the show from a different perspective, like in a different universe, but in the best way. I had this to the most significant extent with the Book of Boba Fett. It's only natural. I mean, concept art is meant to be more exaggerative, and you can take more liberties with the ideas that you can't always replicate in live action. Book of Boba Fett's concept art, for instance, is so much more sepia and space western. Star Wars concept art deserves so much more love than it gets, and I really enjoyed this one. But let me know your thoughts on all of today's news in the comments down below. Did you enjoy this video? If you did, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, check me out on socials, the link to my Patreon is down below, and I'll see you in the next video. May the Force be with you, always.